You guys can get closer. It's Trompe l'oeil. I couldn't really paint that big. So come closer, come closer. Do not, this is the line, right? Don't press that. But get closer, get closer. Who's up there? What do we got over the seas there? Let's see. What's up, Pascal? Chris. Woo. Hello, Christophe, Buffy, Pascal, Julian, Schultze. I can't see the name, but I know a few of you. All right, we're talking about trompe l'oeil. That's the way you spell it, not U-M-P, by the way. All right, trompe l'oeil. So, huh? All right, let's just not get there, all right? When I started doing the fake molding of that, trompe l'oeil means trick of the eye in French, and that's the kind of loose terminology for anything that is two-dimensional, and even give it a three-dimensional profile through paint. So I sort of broke it down into a very formula-based system. So it doesn't leave a lot of room for interpretation. You just follow the rules and you should be able to paint just about everything in three-dimensional. I found out that once you get three essential shapes, you can do every single shape there are. And so we'll go through that. So the first thing we got to establish in trompe l'oeil, we call it TL. The first element is the light source. Okay, the light source is, in this case, that's a spot, but it could be the sun, it could be anything that gives light to the object. It's really, really critical that you know what that light source is, where it's coming from. Is it above? Is it below? Is it sideways? How intense it is? This is really bright. So if it's a really bright light, you're going to have bright highlight and dark shadows. If it's a soft light source, softer shadow, softer highlight. So I always start with the light source because especially when you do a room, you need to establish, and you're going to paint this maybe on canvas in your shop, you need to take a survey of the house or wherever you're doing the trompe l'oeil to see where is there a window, where there is an actual light or chandelier, so you can establish a large source that is the strongest light source. But then again, if everything is in the same plan, even if there's two light sources, your eyes, you don't need to switch light source. You got to be as even as possible, okay? So let's take a sphere, a globe, an orb. Try to do as straight as possible. There. All right, so think of this as a ball, essentially. And arbitrarily, and just because I'm right-handed, I'm used to it, I always pick, if I have a choice, to get my light source from the upper right hand. But if in the room it's coming from the left, it's coming from the left. If it's coming below, that's where we go. So I'm just, right now, just for the sake of understanding, we're gonna create a light source here. And I'm putting that, can you guys see that arrow or not? If you can't, just say, yes, no? Is this better? Oh my God.
Lift the camera a little.
What?
Lift the camera a little. We can't see the top of the screen.
Who's talking?
Patty, Patricia.
Mute her down.
Please mute your.
Patty, of course, the troublemaker. All right. So another thing also, the distance of the light source to the subject has a big imposition of what it's doing. So here, it doesn't matter if it's here or it's over there. What I'm thinking of the light source, it's an even line. I'm not doing a light source that would be, what is it here, like a spotlight, something like this. I'm always thinking of the light source as an even direct light. That's also important because if you have a spotlight type of thing, it's going to vary as it flares out. So simplify as much as possible. It's always the best thing. Okay. So here my light source is even throughout. Now let's pretend that this sphere here is on a table. Okay. So I'm just gonna from the subject from this. All right. Okay, it's on a table, for instance. All right. So once you've established a light source and you know it's coming this way, 45-degree angles, I'm going to say. Oh, that's what I just broke. So I have to fix this quickly. I like to use charcoal pencils because they give a lot of darkness and easy to fade. So once I've established this, what's the next component, the critical component? So it's the formed shadow. So FS is formed shadow. So some people refer it as the shade. I rather call it what it is. So that's all the shadow that's on the object itself. When I say object, this is the object. A molding would be an object, a vase would be an object. So I'm using a terminology. We're going to do a little vocabulary so we understand the terminology, and then we'll start doing different examples, but we'll all be speaking the same language. Light source, form shadow, cast shadow, highlight. So I'm just going through that, and it's easy. All right, so the form shadow is going to be the shadow that is happening on the object here. So let's do that. Now, because it's a sphere, that shadow, that form shadow is going to follow the shape of the sphere. All right, I'm just going to try to blend in as much as possible. There you go. Very simply. Now, that means the slide here is over here. If it was behind, then the entire thing would be dark. Think of it as the moon. So I don't want to get too complex into also, not only it's in 45 degrees, but it's at 45 degrees coming through the wall, from above, or from this side. Here, I'm using the side that's coming from here. So this will be highlighted. Yeah, everybody else so far? That first shadow here that's very transparent, it's faded. I'm trying to fade this a little bit. We call this the half tone. So I'm going to write this down. Half tone. Now, some of you that want, if you went to art school, you'd probably be told mid-tone. And so that's the mid-tone is what I call the base coat. And I don't like to use mid-tone because it implies it's the medium tonality, but I'd rather say it's the base coat, the color of the object. So I take mid-tone away, and for the shadow, half tone. Half tone because it's the most transparent value of the shadow. It's smooth, it's faded here. You know, it's not hard to do with a pencil, but it's faded. And inside of this, we're gonna have the accent. So the accent is gonna be your darkest value of the shadow. So I'm gonna place it here now. Fade it out. And that's my darkest value. Now notice one thing. I did not go to the outer edge. And there's a reason, and I'll tell you that in a few seconds. But right now, we're going to concentrate just on this. So right now you have your half tone from here to there, to the edge. And then your accent is from here to there, right? And generally, again, if you want to be a little bit mathematical about it, the accent equals 1/3 of the half tone. All right, wait, I know I lost a few of you in there, but meaning that, huh? So for those of you that are more, Cartesian in your thinking, you will use that. For those of you that don't care. Just know that the darkest value is always 1/3. Always is just a general term. When I say always, it's going to be, for example, the size of the full shadow. So if your full shadow is only from here to there, your accent can only be 1/3 of that. If it's from here to there, your accent's going to be 1/3 of that. Just as a way, again, it's not always the case 100%, but it's a way to, when you don't know how to do it, that's the best way to value. So roughly, and this is faded, this is faded. All right. Now, what else is happening? That's the form shadow. Okay. Now, the other thing that we have is the cast shadow. In other words, this object, this sphere, this orb, this globe, this circle, is there another term? This ball, this balloon, will cast a shadow on my table. Now, what do I know? Is it going to be, what shape does it have? So there's a very simple trick. If it's 45 degrees, I'm going to do a little dotted line here that goes at 45 degrees to my table. All right, you see that? You guys see it from the back? Arlene?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Okay. Now, again, that is the reason what I'm not doing. You remember I told you I don't do the spot here because otherwise you could have one here and one there. So that's why and realistically, unless you have a spotlight, if you have the sunlight, it's through and through. There's no spotlight. So that gives me my end. And again, it's a circular shape. So now it's a distorted oval. I'll try to do this as clean as possible. Look at this. You overlap a little bit on this side again because there's some shadow here. And then the very end of this, the top of the sphere, this point, translate here to this. Okay. So same business here on the cast shadow. You have your halftone. Here we go. I'm just gonna use my finger to smooth it out. Now, because it's a cast shadow, there's actually, it's not super sharp, but it's not a faded line. There's an actual line to it. Again, this is what's important to know. If it's a very bright light, you're gonna have a very sharp line here around it. If it's a very soft, diffuse light, it's gonna be fuzzy, okay? That's my halftone. What else is happening in the halftone? What other element is there? Anybody? An accent. That's right. And right there, the accent. So the accent, should it be going all the way to here? Should it be half this, a third, a quarter? A third. Some people are following. So I'm doing a third right there, okay? And again, this is going to be faded. So I'm making a little bit strong so it could be visible. Arlene, you see it?
Yeah.
You're my benchmark. All right. Now, so I can make it so it's more visible like this, darker. Now, another trick painter use is that generally speaking, I shouldn't say that, to have your cast shadow to be stronger than your form shadow. It's not always the reality, but again, it's a way to make this. What's the important thing we're trying to communicate? The ball here or the shadow? The ball. So by having just a stronger, even if it's a darker line here, look how much this is popping. So you have your cast shadow, you have your form shadow. You could say that your form shadow is inferior or less strong than the cast shadow. But in other words, the more technical knowledge you have, the easier it is to apply. And that's it. Now, another thing I want to tell you is that the shadowing system gives you about 80% of the volume. Essentially, even without any highlights here, you get the globe, right? It's moving. So the highlight it's just 20, 30%, depending of what it is. Obviously, when it's here, whether it's mostly highlight, then it's more than, but if you look at a shadow system, it's always, the most effective way is the shadowing system. So when you start painting, you start laying out your shadow and your cast shadow everywhere. And then you put the highlight, which allows you to control a little bit better the intensity of it. Now, the highlight is the same idea. You're gonna have a half highlight. So I'm gonna write down here in the formula, plus highlight. And the highlight itself, you get the half highlight and the highlight, which is like the strongest value. So faded, because it's round, and it goes to the edge, right? And then I'm gonna put the super highlight, or the highlight, the accent, and again, right? And again, I'm gonna place it away from my line out there. Like that. Okay, see how it's really moving? It's really nice. So the final element that I want to talk about is this little highlight here. This is called the reflected highlight. And so what happened is when the light here touches here, it bounces back on the bottom of the sphere. So it casts a little bit of highlight, but the highlight is actually, essentially there's no highlight. It's just there's no shadow. I use the halftone color to be that. If you forget it, then you get a little bit of transparent purple or some colors like this, and you go and place it. But that really gives a lot of punch to the system. All right, is everybody still asleep, or I need a heckler. I need a heckler on this. There you go. Yeah, I'm talking about this. So if you that just little hairline here of light, that is the residual light bouncing from the surface coming back up. Again, if this is a made out of stone, a non-reflective material, not polished, then the highlight will be very diffused. If it's a marble, shiny, then it'll be really strong. Same thing, the reflected highlight will that. When you do gold, this will be orange because it bounces back up, or blue, whatever the color is. All right. We'll talk about colors later on, but I just want to tell you that, and this is just more about a teachable material. But these colors, the shadow, the cast shadow, is based on the object. So whatever shadow system takes on the color of the object. So this is ochre, as you can see, and you can tell this is my halftone, right? This is a halftone with the accent, and those colors are based on the ochre color. But the cast shadow is a gray value. It's no longer ochre. So you can see as I'm building up here now, my highlights, super highlight, and then darker shadow. And then look what you're seeing here. You can come back at the end. You'll see a little bit of reflective highlight of the bright orange, which is that really pops it. You know, here it's gray on gray, but you can see the progression, the halftone, accent, here super accent, first highlight, and then there's super highlight and the dark values. But all these colors are based on what's underneath, okay? You don't need to be transparent in the woods. All right. Do you have any questions? Please, anyone? How to get to downtown? I mean, whatever question you have. Good question. Good question. Right. It is hot as a mother.
Well, you've got this light on your.
Jesus
Sorry.
Christ.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
You need to just dump that on you.
That'll be at the end. Wow. How do you know we're gonna go there? Wet t-shirt concerts happening? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I take singles in here, by the way. Anyway, you know who you are. All right. Let's move on. ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so one thing that I came across in my various studying when I was trying to teach this is I realized there are three main elements that will help you do every single profile. And I need my striping. There we go. So I'm going to draw something quickly. And that way it'll make full sense. All right. So let's do the first one. The first element is this. It's called a flat. So it's a flat piece of wood essentially. So this here, this part here is just a base, just like a table, so I could see, you know, what it looks like. It needs to have a background. But the part that we're interested in is this, that little rectangle here. So that's the cross section. So anything that has a square top, square bottom, it's called flat. Could be big, could be small, could be square, it doesn't matter. It's square and flat in between. Everybody get that? Colleen? As this one is just on the cusp, right? All right, I get you. All right. So anybody help me? This is first thing. What do I establish? What's the first thing? Light source. Okay, we're just gonna follow this formula. Okay. So again, I'm gonna keep it exactly the same. So I'm gonna put the light source here. Okay. Yeah. Everybody. I'm gonna quiz some of you. Special. You better get closer, my friend. All right. So next thing, what do? The form shadow. Now it's a square. The light comes here. There's no form shadow. Actually, the form shadow would be underneath there. You don't see it. This is a square. So the form shadow is right underneath. You see the element, right? It's a square. So it'll be right underneath. But when you look at it this way, now if it was placed up there, then you would see underneath, that's perspective. So that's yet another element. We're going to keep it somewhat flat, but there will be a form shadow. So the next thing, the only thing that you have really that's visual is the cast shadow. Again, I'm going to use the same trick and say, how far does it go down here? So if you go to your 45 degrees, and this project into here, that falls about there. Yeah? So I'm going to do quickly. A half tone. This is really not the best one. Are we doing it on time, Teddy?
I get 35 minutes.
Fucking sorry. We gotta hurry up. Okay, and then notice here there's a light coming through behind, so that's why there's a name. Next thing we have is the accent, and that's going to be again half, a third, a quarter, a third of it. That's it. See, that pops out. Last thing we're gonna do, and we've done from the cash shadow, we made the highlight. I lost my pencil. There you go. And so this is a trick also. The highlight is actually on top here, but we have a pencil line, you're drawing. And so what you want to do is you want to place your highlight underneath. In reality, it's above, but you put it underneath because then you use that little pencil line to make this pop out. Yeah? Okay. So let's do this now. We're going to do another element, which is the half round. So there we go, half round. let's go straight here. And then again, I'm placing this on a piece of wood there, on a little table, if you will, so you could see what it looks like. All right, so this shape here, it's a half round. Yeah? You got, the light went on in there, I can see it. All right, we have a customer. Okay, so again, light source, we keep it the same, okay? Form shadow. So now the form shadow is, this is very, very important. This is the middle here that I'm doing a red line. I'm not doing it so visible so it wouldn't impair the design, but that's the highest point, right? And what you want to do is you want to preserve about a third of that highest point untouched. That's what some of you call mid-tone, but I won't call it that, the base color. So you want to make sure, to some degree, that your form shadow, your halftone, does not exceed that midway point. So you stay a little bit underneath. Okay. And this is what's happening, is that now, it's a little hard to do. It's faded out. It's faded. It's not a straight line. Just like the sphere here. This is a little strong. All right, let's just. All right, so I'm just going to hash it a bit. All right, within that, we have, again, our accent. And again, it's also faded upward. This way. Bring it down just a bit more. All right. Now, next thing, you cast shadow. So that half from cast the shadow. Again, it'll have a little bit of a curve here. And I'm going to make sure I'm preserving this element this way. So it'll have an accent as well, and the accent will keep it at about a third of the cast shadow. All right, you see it's popping. And now I'm going to place the highlight. So I think it's going to go right underneath the pencil line. And little by little, it's going to fade out. And I'm staying away to say about a third at the most of the profile. Then we're going to have a super highlight, so more white at the very edge, faded down. So what you have a third shadow, third of the base coat, and a third of the highlight. Again, because I told you at the beginning, the shadow has to be the strongest value, you often bring it to the halfway point and make the lines just a little less visual. All right, so you have your flat. This was your half round. Okay, and then the last shape is going to be the gorge. It's a French term, it's the throat also is another, just doesn't sound as elegant, I suppose. It's like the crotch mahogany. I like to say feather mahogany. It's a bit more elegant, but you know who you are. Some of you like one over the other, and that's fine with me. All right, so the gorge now, or the throat, we use a lot of those terminology are either French or Italian or Latin. Yes?
I have a question. On the method control, what
magic pencil.
She said, what, this is from Heidi. This magic pencil, what's the brand? Whatever pencil you use.
Finally. This is actually a German pencil called Lira. Sounds Italian. Lyra. And it's really nice because we can change the line. We have it.
Online?
Of course you sell them.
But yeah, they're really good because of the picture. And it has its little sheet as well. www. Now, you know what I do is I'm unlike my partner here, they'll use a potato to paint with. I have like 500 brushes, so I'm like one of those guys that just. You put them, well, he's used them. Yeah, exactly. There's no profit in potatoes. All right. Here's my halfway point. Again, we start stem formula. Nothing is stem. First, the light source. So I'm just going to place that again. Okay, light source 45 degrees, meaning that if you go 45 degrees here, that will give you how far down the shadow will go. Yeah. So we're gonna do the halftone. So faded. So again, this time now instead of being square, it's faded downward. That way. Faded. Meaning that your highest value, I really don't have the right finger. The highest value, the darkest part will be at the where the overhang is the strongest. And again, I'm just gonna, within that, I'm gonna have the accent, and that accent again, we're gonna go about a third. So it's not terribly faded, but I think you get the point. Okay, you guys get that? Darlene? Oh, she faded away. Okay, good. And so here we did the halftone, so the form shadow. Is there a cast shadow? There's none. And again, forget about the table here, but there's no cast shadow. So it's just a
Who's got this phone? Who's got you?
my boss right there. What game is on? All right. So my fingers are a little dirty, so that might. So again, the same idea here. The light comes from down here. The sharpest light will be where the volume is the flattest, and as it goes upward, it fades upward. All right. All right. Now we're gonna cheat a little bit. We're gonna go a little faster. All right. So let's review. You have your flat, your half round, and your board. From that, let's just put this up. Thank you. Legrand, my assistant. A looker, if I know one. Now, here's the beauty of it. As I say, these three shapes will do every single thing. If I cut this in half, okay, what do I get? Right? I'm going to get the quarter round. I'm going to have the reverse quarter round. If I cut this in half, I have what's called the cavetto, which is the upper part of this, and the reverse cavetto. Right here, no thinking. All you do is you take a knife and cut this in half. So you already now got 4 more. Madame Legrand, please. Monsieur Legrand. His parents didn't know how to pronounce it. They made a mistake in the writing. They thought it was fine, but they put a feminine article for the Monsieur Legrand. But it's still to this day, I thank them for that opportunity to joke. All right, let's do a more complex shape. This is called a doucine. It goes this way, right? Now, if you think about it, again, those are very classical. If you study classical or molding ornamentation, a part of the system. I'll use a stick for more efficient. Okay, look at this shape, right? Now, if you cut it in half, the upper part is the cavetto, the bottom part is the reversed quarter. You put them together, and you have this shape. And that again comes from taking the top of this and the bottom of that. If you go at the reversed doucine, oh, this is the heel, I'm sorry, which is now all highlight. It's exactly something. You cut it in half. What you get the upper half round, the bottom of the gorge. That gives you this, right? Then when we get the, it was the doucine, the heel, because it looks like the heel of a foot. Now this one is more tricky, but if you cut this in half, you've got the reverse quarter round and the cavetto, but they're together. So this one is going to be faded up and faded down. And the accent here is going to be the same thing. It's going to be a third, faded upward and faded downward. You see, no mystery. You apply the rule. And if you look at the reverse heel, this one, again, if you cut it in half, you look at it and say, oh, wait a minute, I know that shape. That's the bottom of the gorge, that's the cavetto, and the upper of the quarter round. Again, they're put together, so it's the highlight faded up and faded down. Now, any shape you can establish, you will be able to recognize any of these things. All right? Any question? All right, let's. I'll bring it home. I'll bring it home.
But can you do it with a brush?
Oh, my brother, you have issued you have now issued a challenge. All right. I think I
What do you
can.
get with that pencil?
I think I can. I think I can. All right. There was a panel here. What happened to the right over the bus? All right. Now we're going to put all this together. So I painted a shape. I'm short, so I got to be here. All right. You don't need to rub it in, okay? Next time you come in, you just go like this, right? Make me feel a little more masculine. This is what I got to deal with on a daily basis. Oh, wait, no, don't, there's a reason for this. Aha! All right. So I painted in gray so you can see the profile. Yeah? So we can establish there's a lot of things on. There's a doucine, there's a heel, there's a half round, there's a flat, another flat, a cavetto, a flat, and another flat. It looks complex, but it's very easy. Now, the question I get often is that, how do we establish the color? So my good friend, Nicola Vigini, you know what, that's right. My boys, whenever we get together, after we've taken a piss on each other, literally, we start painting, and that everybody wants to outdo each other. And we're always struggling to find, oh, how do you establish this color? So the one thing I started with is that, again, we're going to establish the light source. I'm going to keep it the same just to keep it simple, right? Like this, 45, this way. And then we got to mix all those values. I did it before. You can see over there. But here's a great trick. So always the shadow the system will take on the color of the subject. This color is sort of sepia color. So I know that in my tonality, I want to have a little bit of sepia. I see a little bit of purple. I see some yellow. I see a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of a cocoa. So I mixed it up. And here's a great trick. So if you bend this down this way, this is casting a shadow here. And now I can try my color. This is going to be the halftone, so it's going to be light, but I can see how it fares out to this color. So if I had a different color, so you see I'm going to be very, very close to this color. This is very strong light, but that's a great way to find out what color you have by just getting a little bit of this, and then you start mixing your color. Yeah, I'm going to do here. It's a little purple, but it'll do. This is, again, the light is extremely strong here. But if I look underneath here, a little bit under, I'm really right on the spot. And again, I want to try my different value. All right, so that's a really good trick.
I have a past question. Can you go back or do you know?
I can go back. I don't matter to me.
Okay, so Chris asked.
Chris, who? Fofi.
Why doesn't the gorge have the harsher highlights like the first one?
Why doesn't the gorge what?
Have the harsher highlights like the first one?
Let's look at this. Okay, so I think I know what he's saying. This one, right? So again, the light hits it here, and if the material is very reflective, I can do it like this.
Oh, on the flat one.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Because I said this is not the system. The gorge is only here. This is just a base work. But if he's right, if I were to complete this, I would have put a highlight here, and a highlight underneath up top here, and a highlight there.
He says, okay, I see.
But the truth is, I want you to concentrate on that. So just like I ignore this, I'm ignoring the top. He's right. If it was this, if I'm talking about this entire shape, this is it. But here, what we're talking is just that.
And then I had a question. Can you apply this to the canvas? Yes, the canvas sleeve for us. But you've got a demonstration of.
He was born here. Go ahead. Tech.
So this is from Patricia's one.
Again, this one.
Yeah, can you apply this to and a canvas sleeve for us? But I think you need to get to your demonstration, right?
Yes, I would, but that's a full class. But I'll try to do a little drawing and then do that.
We can that
Huh?
You got it right there. That's the form of it.
Oh yeah, wait. Hey, Patricia. There we go.
There you go, Patricia.
So again, when you have
Thank you,
something
Pierre.
like this, you have the volume going up and down. So the I'm going to do this. This is why this is more than an hour.
Yeah.
Because Patricia is this. That's fine. Listen, it's an important message. All right. So if I have this boss here, this is what it looks like. There's a flat. This is this edge here. It goes down. It goes up. There's the center, the ball, flat. Again, there's a doucine. Go up, which is a little bit of a cavetto, and then you're flat. This is the cross section. So I know how to apply. If this was a straight molding like this, right? And the light source coming here. So this will be shadow and faded, shadow faded. This will be shadow faded both way. This will be a cast shadow here, and this is highlight. And then the highlight will be here, the rest. Except now, it's all around, right? So not only does it move this way, but just like the sphere, it also moves this way. So the shadow would go this way, This one, it turns around, it goes from a shadow here, and when it goes up there, it becomes highlight and so forth. So it's the same principle. Now you have to apply this thinking in 3D, So right now we're going to keep to the simple. And I'm going to do, I'm permitted. Huh? Am I? Teddy, you're so good. You've allowed us to shine. All right, let's do it. So when I stripe, I'm going to use a striping edge. Striping edge are beveled both sides. Hard to tell, but I'll pass one around. So there's a bevel on the up and there's a bevel on the bottom. I wanted this back, okay? That's my favorite. Okay. And I'm always using it so the bevel, the upper bevel is away from the surface. So when I hold it, I'm putting my thumb here in that hole. And what I'm doing is I'm doing this. I'm pushing down with a thumb and I'm pulling with these fingers to create a bit of an arc. That arc is what makes the contact here. So it'll allow me to paint this. All right, so I've mixed a value. This is halftone. Again, and the type of brushes we want to use for this type of work are fish that are rounded and very sharp. So my striping brushes, some are very big, some are sables. I only use them for striping, nothing else. Not marble, nothing. A square brush will give me a nice sharp shadows. The rounded here, you'll see how I get the faded. So here we go, I start. And I'm gonna start with a half tone, okay? It's a little like, okay. The one thing, again, for those of you that really calculate, if I drop a light here, that means this is casting a shadow here. So instead of having my highlight starting right at the edge, because it's casting a shadow, my highlight will start a little below. If you don't follow that, don't worry. You can do it exactly like this. Nobody will see the difference. I will, but I'm not going to be there. I'm not paying you, so that's. So what I'm doing is like the first stroke goes horizontal, right to the bottom of the pencil line, and then I'm fading slightly. I want a slight little fade here. And I stop right on the dime here.
You're turning the brush.
Exactly. So I'm straight like this, and if I'm giving it a slight angle, it's like a plow, a snow plow. If you push it, it pushes snow out of it. So if you angle a certain way, it's going to push the glaze upward. If you go this way and go that way, it goes downward. Here I want it to go upward, so I go this way. Again, it's one of those things when you start doing it, you will know. All right. So here again, I'm going through my system. The brown just put over there, where I'm doing first my form shadow. So this is a complex one because here you have a form shadow faded upward and faded downward. All right. We went through it on this design because we're doing this one, the heel. So what I'm going to do, and for those of you that are close, you'll see there's a little pencil line here. And I do that often on a job. I'll get a little chalk and I'll give you my line. Just kidding. You do whatever you want. That's right. You get it in there. All right, this is what you're right. I need mobiles. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my line right there in the middle. And I'm going to fade upward, little by little, to the upper part. And then downward. You see what I'm doing is I'm opening this, and that gives me, so it's always keeping straight. And as I'm closing up, so I don't care if it's really not faded as much. Don't worry about that. This is good enough. You see already? This. All right. What else is happening? This is straight, so there's no highlight or shadow. It's a straight line here, so it stays like this. Now there's a little accent in there. Now when you know what you're doing, you could go right with a super accent in that little recess because that's what it needs. But right, again, I set it up with a halftone because it's on my brush, and that's a lot easier to do. Okay, now I have a half round. So a half round, I'm gonna go halfway, fade it up. Loading this up here. Right on the edge of the pencil. And as I'm going up, I'm just going to move the brush slightly upward to get a nice little fade in there. There we go. See, it's already, look at the profile. And it's still soft enough. Okay. Now I have a flat, it's casting a shadow. So again, that's a square line, square shadow. So there's no fading here. And what's happening here is that there's a little 45 here because the light pops through. So I'll take my rag and create that. You'll see it'll look better when it's done. Again, I have another one here. Right underneath this. And I'm gonna make this one a little more pronounced because it's deeper. Go. And again, I'm gonna get that little 45 here because that's the light coming through. This is highlight, highlight, highlight. So already here, I've done all my system, my highlights, my shadow. I'm gonna dry it up. So here I'm using matte medium, so it dries really fast because I want it to dry fast, but you can use a slow drying medium, you would have to wait each time. I'm gonna use the same color. Here's a trick when you wanna fade with a water system. What you wanna do is basically work within the previous line. So here I'm gonna stay a third inside, and then as it overlaps, it gets darker. And if I wanna get the fade, now I'm gonna stay inside of this till I get the darkest point. So it's very simple. Again, I want to make this darker in there. And that should be all accent, but again, I'm going through the motion. And I'm staying shy of the previous line here. Okay. Again, I'm going to start right down in the center, so I got to find my line. Here we go. I'm going to fade it upward, 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 and fade downward, downward, downward. You see it's starting to really get a nice volume. And I'm going to take my little rag and clean this up. There we go, beautiful. I gotta give myself some props. Yeah, that's right. You need to say that. Oh, incredible. Again, so I'm gonna put the halftone, and I'm leaving a little bit of that bottom line here to get the. No, I've forgotten to put a cast shadow right in here. And then this one, again, I stay within a third. And then another one here. Now this is what's great about that is that as each time you go over the previous one, you're getting more and more definition. It's sharpening itself as you go over. Thank you, my Chrissy. I'm going to speed this up. So now I'm going to start with the accent. This, I'm just going to push this value further up.
The normal time is 5 minutes. If you want to go a little bit.
Yeah, no, I should be, 5 minutes. As I said, I've made babies. But that's a different story. We cannot talk about that. So now I'm getting my accent. So it's dark. It's the same color. It's just a little more intense. You can see here it's gonna really pop. It's really look almost right the same color. So I'm gonna really concentrate right to this section here. Right there. I'm gonna leave this one here because it's a bit of a reflected, in other words, the bottom here reflected up and that should stay a little more white. This is a difficult one because you can't mess this up. Just like that. So I'm gonna place this just slightly below.
Arvid says thank you. Good lecture. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Who said that?
Arvid.
Arvid is there. Hey, Arvid. Arvid.
Danke, Chef.
I mind that's the Schultze. You don't need to tell me. All right, you see how we're getting a really nice volume there? Then we're gonna put some highlight and we'll be home for the holiday. So as it gets, huh?
Heidi said magic brushes as well. Very nice. But I think you've been.
The magic brushes. That's the name of our thing?
Keeps calling your brushes the magic brushes.
Correct. She was right. All right, so I'm gonna put this in there. So now it's gonna really make this recede. And another thing, also another trick that I've learned over the years is that when you do your shadow system, you try to get with cool colors because they recede, and then the highlights you go with warm colors because they pop. So that's a thing I got from somebody that worked in the theater. And when you do a trompe l'oeil that meant to be seen like 60 feet away, in the balcony, they use color as well as a way to make these things pop out. There we go. And then every time I go, I get a lot more definition. So this is really popping. So I'm gonna throw some highlight now, and that'll be it. And then I'll do the super accent, but I'll wait till I have my highlights. So I go with a half highlight. I take another brush, just because you don't want to be dirty from the dark, it will compromise the color. And again, this highlight is beautiful. It has a little bit of a yellow tonality. So that's one thing is mistake I see a lot of people use highlight pure white. That never works. It's only work on white. But if you have color, you got to pick a little bit of the color. So a little bit of pink. I'm trying to get this value here. But again, I reinforce some of the key values just to give them a bit more visual. So here I got a thin highlight. It's not going to show that much because this is meant to be faded. So I'm just going through the motion. But now I'm going to get my faded downward highlight. That's the half round. Setting it up. Like that. And I'm, again, trying not to go over the third of it. It's not very, look a little more intense here, so I'm going to change that. So it's better to be a little more soft It takes a couple more strokes, but at least it looks consistent. And you have a beautiful fade. So this one is faded upward. Like this. There we go. There we go. I'm going to clean this little edge right there. And I have a little bit of a highlight. I'll wait till put this. So I'm going to add one more coat of this. Drying up. You see how the volume, even from over there, it's starting to really come. I'm going to start adding here. And each time you go, the highlights start to be stronger. See, now you're starting to see it. And you can really fade it. So even though it's not oil and you're not, back and forth to drag it, all you have to do is just to go within the previous line, stay there, and it still reads very, very well. Little highlight here. Little highlight there. And again, little faded upward. Faded upward. Okay. So there's a little highlight here, but I'm just going to do with a super sharp pencil brush. Again, my super highlight. And I'm going to take yet another brush. This is good. Yeah, I use the straight edge as a palette to sharpen my brush. Let's see if this works. Oops. Just cut that. Hey, Evan. Can you give me some white? Look, just a little bit of a white, golden, the fluid acrylic. Thanks. Soft.
So Heidi is actually, but she looks like she's in bed watching this. I just.
Sean! I'm kind of liking that in some strange way. Let's look at what she's wearing.
No.
Is that appropriate? I don't think so. HR, let's speak down. Hi, Heidi.
Okay, I'll move on. Sorry,
It's too late. This is going to be hard to remove. I'm shaking a little bit. It's true. Is my am I? Look at that goddamn thing. Okay. Look wrong. Why don't you come here? Take your shirt off. Take your shirt off. Come on. We'll do a trick when I put my face on your body. All right, so the highlight here I'm placing, I'm going to pop this a little bit more just for visual effect. But if again, if it's a stone, if it's a non-reflective material, it's not going to be as visual. But again, for the effect of getting a little bit more visual play, you can go with that.
Pascal says, great job here.
Oh, Pascal, the four amigos. Thank you, Pascal. So we're gonna give it a stop now, but I'm gonna show you a little trick also. Yet another brush, give a bit of highlight, color. And then that's where you kind of get a little bit of a all it does is just pop this, just give it a little bit more of it. So that's it. That's the. Oh wait, no, stop. One more thing. The super accent. The super accent.
What question you?
Oh, my brother from another mother. I run out of brush, I guess. Oh, here we go. All right. Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Cheers, Katarina.
Huh? How surprising is that to anybody? Oh, wow. I didn't want to go there, but I'm. Look around. Thank you, my brother. Okay.
We have about 5 more minutes.
Okay, here we go. I'm done. So watch this, because this is important. This is another thing I learned from watching the Italian works. You could see in the museum, they come back with a burnt umber accent, and it really pops things up. So it looks a little strong, but you're going to see what it does. Try to remember what it looked like before. Look at this, boom. Oh, I don't know what I did that. I don't, I'm not that kind of guy that, I sort of like instantly went into that, but I shouldn't have. So all this does is really gives it a nice pop. So you're gonna see, especially here, where I had that, trying to get that reflected highlight. Now you're gonna see that a lot better. It really, so that's the thing about Trompe is that every stroke has to add something to the story. If it doesn't, then it's either not dark enough or too dark or not intense enough. It has to mark a point. Okay. And then another, see how much pop I got on this? And a final thing. There you go. I'm going to come back with a half tone, and I'm going to put it above the highlights. And again, the only reason I'm doing this is just to make the highlight read a little stronger. You see? So it just adds. And here, I'm just going to put it here, very, very sharp, very thin. It doesn't really exist. Its sole purpose is to make the highlight pop out even more. So you don't have to get too strong of a highlight because of the little halftone I'm putting here. You see everything pops very nicely. All right, so but that, you see how that last super accent really rubbed this. I didn't do much in here. I mean, did some. All right, that's it. There's more edit. One last thing. So you can see this is a marble panel gray, not a lot of action, but as soon as you put the highlight and shadows there, it really has a tremendous amount of visual, visual appeal. And look, like this is really popping a mile away. You can see that. And then you can see now that super accent here, not burnt now because it's all gray system. And my whites are very soft. They're gray actually, they're not white, because otherwise it looks too strong. Even this is probably too extreme, but it's marble, so there's more reflectiveness. You can have that. All right. Any question?
Thank you.
coming on Zoom. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you, the
joining us.
Zoomies.
Bye.
Thank you.
Zoomies.
Salon artist.